William Morrow and Harper Audio present Wrath of a Mad God, Book 3 of the Darkwar Saga, by Raymond E. Feist, performed by Peter Joyce.
Chapter 1. Escape. Miranda screamed. The searing agony that seized her mind relented for the briefest moment, and in that instant she found what she had been seeking. The preponderance of her awareness was occupied with the battle of wills with her captors, but a tiny fragment, a disciplined fraction of her consciousness, had been readied. Over the days of interrogation and examination, she had used every respite to partition off this one sliver of her intellect, to somehow overcome the blinding pain and observe. During the last 4 encounters with the Dasati death priests, she had achieved that detachment and willed her body to withstand the pain. It was there, she knew, inflamed nerves protesting about the alien energies coursing across the surface of her mind, probing it, seeking insights into her very being. But she had learned to ignore physical pain centuries before. The mental assaults were more difficult, for they attacked the root of her power, the unique intelligence that made her a supreme magician on her home world. These Dasati clerics lacked any pretense of subtlety. At first they had ripped open her thoughts, like a bear pulling apart a tree stump looking for honey. A lesser mind would have been savaged beyond recovery on the first assault. After the third such onslaught, Miranda nearly had been reduced to idiocy. Still she had fought back, and knowing there was no victory if there was no survival, she had focused all her considerable talents, first on endurance, then insight. Her ability to shunt aside the terrible assault and focus on that tiny sliver of knowledge she had gained kept her sane. Her determination to overcome her captivity and return with that knowledge gave her purpose. Now she feigned unconsciousness, a new ploy in her struggle with her captors. Unless they possessed finer skills than she had so far encountered, her charade was undetected. To them she appeared incapacitated. This counterfeit lack of awareness was her first successful conjuration since her captivity began. She risked just enough body awareness to ensure that her breathing was slow and shallow, even though she suspected the death priests who studied her still knew too little about humans to understand what physical signs to observe. No, her struggle was in the mind, and there she would eventually triumph. She had learned more about her captors than they had about her, she was certain. Individually, the Dasati were no match for her, nor even for one of her more advanced students back home. She had no doubt, without the snare concocted by Leso Varen to disorient her, she would have easily disposed of the 2 death priests who had seized her. But Varen was a force to reckon with, a necromancer with centuries of experience, and she alone would be hard-pressed to best him. 3 times one of his bodies had been killed, to her knowledge, by multiple foes and taken by surprise, but still he survived. Between Varen and the death priests, she had been quickly overwhelmed. Now she knew the death priests for what they were, necromancers of a sort. Throughout her life, Miranda had chosen to ignore clerical magic, as was common for most magicians on Midkemia, as being some sort of manifestation of the gods' powers. Now she regretted that oversight. Her husband, Pug, had been the only magician with whom she was familiar who had some insight into clerical magic, having made it a point to learn as much about it as he could, despite the tendency of the various orders to be secretive. He had learned a great deal about this darkest of magic, because of his repeated...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?